I thought I was doing something good, but really I just kept digging a deeper hole for myself. I learned that Jesus Christ came for the broken. He came for those who felt radioactive, like no one could come near them. He came for those who couldn't defend themselves, who couldn't put their life back together. And that's what I encountered, was here's a brand new life, Alanzo.
Alanzo, we're here in Oxford. What are you doing in Oxford?
Gosh, so many things. It's a busy place to live. So one, I'm doing speaking and tutoring at ACA, which is the Oxford Centre for Christian Apologetics. I also, through ACA, direct something called Reboot, which is ACA's Youth Apologetics Initiative. So we go out and try to reach young people with the gospel and respond to their biggest questions. And at the same time, I'm gearing up for a PhD, they call it DPhil here in Oxford, in philosophical theology.
So interesting. A, people will pick up from your accent that you're Canadian.
Yes, sir.
And B, your background wouldn't make people assume that you would end up in this sort of academic environment. So where did you grow up?
I grew up on the West Coast, in Alberta, Calgary.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your family like? Tell me about your family.
So growing up, it was spectacular. We did Monopoly nights and tobogganing. I don't know if you know as an Australian what tobogganing is, but that sort of thing. You know, there's only so many things you can do at minus 40 degrees Celsius, right? So yeah, really happy home growing up.
When you were 12 years old, things changed?
Yes. So my parents were going through a rough patch, doing their best to support us, and ultimately it ended in a pretty nasty divorce. And that's when things really changed in my household.
In that period of time, was faith, religion, any part of your family? Yeah,
so I would say we were probably more closely to nominal Catholics. So, you know, we would go to Mass and those sorts of things, but I didn't have a deep understanding of who Jesus Christ was and is. The resurrection, what he did on the cross, those sorts of real core beliefs of Christianity, I didn't really comprehend it at that time. And when my parents got divorced, that's when the spiritual life completely ceased.
Yeah. Divorce is incredibly difficult, clearly for your parents, but how did it impact you?
It rocked my world. It really shook me to the core. And then I tried to find equilibrium. I think when we all go through some form of trauma, we try to find equilibrium somehow. So some people will find it in academics or sports or some sort of club. For me, however, for some reason or another, I just fell into the wrong group of kids. And that's where I was trying to find my balance and peace and shalom again. And it just didn't work out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you fall in the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
What are the sorts of things you get into?
So it started off with smoking weed. And it just happened to be something to do. We were all bored that day and started smoking weed. Then I started smoking cigarettes. Then it was, hey, why don't we go to this party this weekend? And then at the party, you start drinking. And then before I know it, and I'm 12 years old. Like, I work with young people now. I'm like, you're just a baby. What do you do? Who gave that to you? So at 12 years old, I'm already beginning to be ushered into this sort of lifestyle. And it feels good. And I think I have a good sense of community. It's filling those sorts of needs that I have. And then it just gets progressively worse as I'm, instead of just doing it on the weekends, now I'm starting to do it during the week. And then as I get into high school, now I'm doing it if I have a break in between classes or if I, meet my friends in the morning, we're just doing it all day long.
Clearly, when you start at 12, by the time you're in your late teens, it'd probably be a bit of a mess, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, I was getting in fights with my parents. I was getting in fights with teachers at school, other kids in my grade or grades above or whatever. My whole life was a mess. And I thought I was, doing something productive. I thought I was doing something good. But really, I just kept digging a deeper hole for myself. And it just kept getting darker and darker and more painful.
Was it an addiction? Is that where you landed?
By the time, I remember thinking about this in high school, I remember having for the first time the thought of, I'm afraid to be sober. I'm afraid to be sober because I'm afraid of the feelings that I'll have when I am, and I won't know how to encounter those or to deal with them. And so by the time I'm in high school, I'm properly an addict to drinking, smoking weed, that sort of thing.
This all developed till you got into the clothing trade.
Yes.
What was that about?
So I got kicked out of my mom's house, and then I moved into my dad's house, and my dad tried really hard, but I eventually got kicked out of his house as well and moved to a rough neighborhood. And in this rough neighborhood, I had gotten a job where I had been introduced to opiates. And so the opiate addiction began. And the partying became more intense. And then the recreational drugs, so if opiates was like a staple meal, the recreational drugs became more intense as well. So now you're doing cocaine on the weekends and in addition to everything else that you're doing. And then I got introduced to this gentleman that wanted to open up a hip hop clothing store at a local mall. And in this clothing store, I was really attracted to it. I had been in sales, paying my bills. I had been in sales. He wants to sell this. I'm sort of interested in that. They're drug dealers, so I'm really interested in hanging out and being in close proximity to these guys. And they tell me that it's going to be a front for selling crack cocaine. And so I'm like, oh man, how am I getting to this point in my life? I felt like I was just tobogganing and playing Monopoly. But here we are, and then I started working for them. And the addiction at that point to opiates was so intense that I would wake up, go to the store, open it up, crush these tablets, so Oxycontin, Percocets, morphine, that sort of thing, crush it on the register and do my first lines on the register as I'm opening up the store at like 8 o'clock in the morning with my cup of coffee, my Tim Hortons. So the addiction was so intense that from the time I woke up in the morning to the time I went to bed, it was the chief thing on my mind.
You've already said you're here in Oxford and you're doing a PhD. You're clearly an intelligent person. Do you think,
That's
look
debatable.
back at that, if you look back at that point and go, what was I thinking? Because there's something more going on than just how smart you are or how academically bright, intelligent you are.
When I look back in those years, I don't think, what were you thinking? Obviously, there are points where you're like, oh my gosh, that was so dumb. But I think when I'm looking back, I more look back with a sense of deep gratefulness that God kept me alive and sheltered me, that he had a tremendous amount of mercy on me. Because there was times I should have died. The times where you do one too many pills. And I remember there were at least half a dozen times where I almost OD'd. I was completely freaking out in my little basement flat, opening up all the windows, doing really irrational things, scratching my back, because when you do it, you get really itchy and all these things. And I'd call my dad freaking out and just needing some sort of, like come get me or just like calm me down. Like, I don't know what's going on, that sort of thing. So when I look back in those moments, I'm overwhelmed that God would save somebody, that he would save someone like me, because I don't feel like I deserved that mercy then nor now.
There came a moment where you actually talk about a moment of grace, which is a moment you could have died as well.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking about him. It's just, it's really moving me. He's just the best. So I was going to a reggae night. So my background's Caribbean. My dad's from Guyana. And I had another Guyanese friend, and we were going to this reggae night. And we're doing the whole thing. Cocaine, opiates, smoking weed, the whole shebang. And we go back to his flat, and I'm smoking a little bit of weed before bed, and I sort of pass out. And my friend has what they call a drug-induced schizophrenic episode. And this drug-induced schizophrenic episode caused him to hear voices. And these voices were telling him to cut my head off. And as I'm laying down on the couch, he comes and swings. And this is where I think that Jesus Christ saved my life. I am convinced that this is where whatever trickle of grace I was experiencing pre this episode became a flood, a full invasion of God into my life. He was 1 inch away from being successful. The guy ended up just hitting the back of my head here at the base of the skull, this big bone here. 1 inch away from not sitting here today. And he was swinging hard. So obviously, when he hit me, I woke up, he took another swing, caught me in the hand, was able to push him off me, get to a hospital. When I got to the hospital, of course, the police interrogate you. Why are you here? It's like 4:30 in the morning, and I gave them some story that I thought was so smart, but it was like so ridiculously false. And so they said, you can't leave for the next little bit. And I'm thinking, I need to leave. I need to go get my pills or whatever. And they're like, Alonzo, this guy, he's hit you so hard in the back of the head, you're bleeding internally in your brain. We're going to wheel you in for a scan. That's what they said to me after they wheeled me in for a scan. And so I had 3 days of just reflecting on my life soberly. And again, years before, I was already saying to myself, I'm scared of being sober. And that's when I was thinking to myself, you're just not going down a particularly good path, Alonzo. You don't need a degree from Oxford to figure that out. And then I think I became more open to things as I realized this seriously can end pretty soon. And this is not going to be pretty.
Your sister invites you to church.
Yeah.
What do you feel when she invites you?
Well, before she invites me, I'm seeing that she's starting to change. So I knew that she got invited to church. And she had gone through a rough patch, and a really rough patch. And now when I'm meeting up with her periodically, she looks happy. I'm like, that's strange. I'm like, why is that happening? And then she's like, oh, I'm going to church, and I'm like, really loving it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then she's like, you should come. And I'm like, nah. And she's like, no, you'll really enjoy it. And she's like, she's a brilliant evangelist apologist. She just changes her, her language and adapts, and says, you chill vibes there, Alonzo, chill vibes, yeah? Like you'll come, you'll leave feeling good. And I remember thinking to myself, I already feel like I'm a piece of crap. I already know how worthless I am, that I've screwed up my life, that I've had this near-death experience. If I go there, I will just die. And why would I die? I think I would just die from the additional shame put on me. I was already putting so much shame onto myself, and that would just be the tipping point. I thought they would judge me. I thought they would reject me. I was convinced that they would see how guilty I am. I felt like it was writ large on my face. But eventually, my sister just cajoled me with something like Nando's chicken, like, hey, I'll buy you something if you come, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go. And I just wasn't expecting to find what I did there.
Was it the community, what was said, or the sense of encountering God in the room?
It wasn't the community initially. The community came afterwards. At the beginning, initially, it was one-on-one with God. It was meeting God in this place, this sacred place. So I walked in, and I think I always had a sort of sense of the sacred from the early years of Catholicism, that God's not to be trifled with and those sorts of things, and that certain spaces can be holy and sacred and other places aren't. And so I'd go in, and this pastor started to exposit who Jesus Christ actually was and is. And that hit me like a tidal wave. For months, I was sitting down in those chairs, just listening, like God was speaking right to me through this pastor. And I don't think there was a single Sunday that I didn't cry. That there wasn't a single Sunday that I didn't think that this pastor must have some spy, because he's speaking right to me. Like, how does he know? Like, and it was, okay, well, it's a little strange the first time, but like after a couple of months, you're kind of like, hey, my guy, you're doing something here. But it was so relevant, and it was speaking right to me. And there was floods of tears as I learned that Jesus Christ came for the broken. He came for those who felt radioactive, like no one could come near them. He came for those who couldn't defend themselves, who couldn't put their life back together. I was thinking about it like this. The Samaritan woman, she's a tough lady at the well. She's a tough lady. She knows how to change her life, pick herself back up. She does this 5 times, and she's getting ready to go for the 6th. But the 7th man that she comes across is Jesus. And what Jesus offers her isn't another way of changing your life or learning how to pick yourself up again. Instead of offering her another way to change your life, he offers her a brand new one. And that's what I encountered, was here's a brand new life, Alanzo.